Hi and welcome to Jackie's Kitchen. On today's show, I'm going to show you a really quick and easy party treat that you can have when you're entertaining at home or going over to someone's house. So our recipe today is pizza scrolls, and the great thing about this recipe is it can be as flexible as you want it to be. So you can have any ingredient that you'd like. But today what I've chosen is, for the sauce, 1 tin of crushed tomatoes. I have 40 grams of tomato paste, 1 brown onion finely diced, 2 cloves of garlic finely diced as well, a pinch of sugar, about a teaspoon of salt, and they will form the sauce and the base of your pizza scroll. You'll also need a couple of sheets of puff pastry. So we are using a convenience food today, something that's quick and easy that you can always use at home. And for our toppings, I've used a range of vegetables and cold meats. So I have 1 green capsicum, roughly chopped, 1 red capsicum, roughly chopped, 1 cabanossi, finely sliced, about 6 buttons of mushrooms, also roughly chopped, about 300 grams of shoulder ham, diced or roughly chopped, and some pitted Kalamata olives sliced. I also bought some pizza cheese, so a mix of mozzarella and tasty cheese there to get that nice pizzy, stringy, cheesy flavour. So to start off with, I'm going to make the red sauce. So I've got my pan on the heat, going to increase the heat, add some olive oil, get that to heat up. So allow the olive oil to really heat up before you apply the onion. And if you're unsure, just add 1 piece of onion. If it sizzles, the oil is at the right temperature and ready for you to use. Okay, it's just started to sizzle lightly there, so I'm ready to use the pan with the heated oil. So I'm going to start off by sauteing that chopped onion till it's translucent in colour. So you want it to go a little clear. Now, you can buy pre-made pizza sauce, but because we kind of already have a lot of convenience foods introduced into this recipe, I always like to bring a home feel to something that is pretty much convenience. Give that a stir. Allow the heat to evenly spread through. You don't want to brown the onion. So that'll need a couple of minutes. While you're waiting for your onion to cook or go translucent in colour, you can prepare your puff pastry. So allow your puff pastry to thaw out to room temperature so it's easy to use. Make sure you take the plastic off. I don't really know of many people that make their own puff pastry these days, but the products that you can buy in the market today are pretty great. It does take quite a few hours of layering your pastry when it comes to making your own puff pastry. I've got a fork and I'm piercing the puff pastry so that it doesn't puff up and rise too much when you're baking it in the oven. On the note of the oven as well, make sure you always start with your oven preheated so it's nice and hot and ready to go. You're really going to enjoy this recipe today because it's a really good recipe to prepare in advance and put in the freezer for when you need it later. So I've pierced the base of my puff pastry and it's ready to use. My onions are pretty much ready. I'm going to add the garlic. Mix it through. When I'm making sauces like this, I like to season my onion at the very beginning. So I'm going to add my salt and some freshly cracked pepper. Or some black pepper. Just give that a mix. Okay, I'm going to add my tomato paste so that it cooks off with the onion and garlic. Mix that through. And lastly, I'm going to add my tin tomatoes. They're the crushed tin tomatoes. Okay, this will give it a nice juicy texture. I'm going to let that mix through. It should reduce in its state of liquid, so it should come down to a thicker sauce, and it will take about 10 minutes. Okay, so once 10 minutes has passed, you can reduce your sauce to a light simmer. It's pretty much ready. You can see that it's gotten a lot more thicker than what we originally had. At this stage, I'm also going to add that little pinch of sugar just to get rid of that acidic taste in the tomato. And I kind of like my herbs, so I'm going to add some Italian dried herbs into this mix. Just a pinch, and it will add a little bit of more extra flavour into the pizza sauce. And like I said earlier, it's a homemade sauce. Even though we are using a convenience food, the puff pastry, it's a homemade sauce, so you're really adding a nice home-style taste to your cooking. So I'm going to turn that off, and you will need to let that cool before you add it to your puff pastry. So I'm going to bring that into a bowl. This is a great recipe your children can get involved in making. You can personalise everyone's own little puff pastry too. So you're not limited to these ingredients. You can use any ingredients you like. So over here, we're going to use the pieced puff pastry that we've prepared earlier. Just make sure it doesn't stick on the bowl. Okay, I have prepared some milk. We're going to use that to glaze the puff pastry once we roll it. So I'm going to apply some of this sauce onto the puff pastry sheet that we have. I am working with it hot, but it is ideal to be used at room temperature or chilled. We're not using too much, so just spread it over evenly. It's a chunky sauce, and it's a great way to hide your vegetables, because I know from my young ones, the minute they find out there's onions in the sauce, they won't eat it. So they won't even notice it's there. Okay, there we go. So we evenly pat that out. And now it's up to you what ingredients you would like to use. I always start off with a pinch of cheese, just so the other ingredients stick to the base. Now, I kind of like a supreme taste to my pizzas, so I'm going to be using all these ingredients here today. The red, the green capsicum. It's great colour as well. Children like colourful foods, and this is a great treat for them to eat from as well. Everything is fresh mushrooms. We've got some ham. It's a good source of protein there as well. Some cabanossi. If you like your chilli, you can add fresh chilli or salami with chilli in it. It's all up to you. Like I said, you can personalise your pizzas with your family depending on what they like to eat. And I like a little bit of pineapple as well into that mix. And it's as easy as that. To finish it off, I'm going to add some tasty cheese and mozzarella cheese, the pizza cheese. A generous amount over the top. Now I'm going to roll the puff pastry into each other, just like a sandwich, like a wrap sandwich. So I'm going to start with the base, pick it up. It can be a bit fiddly, so you've got to use both hands just to gently lift the base over and through. Keep rolling it, keeping it together. Okay? If you noticed, I've left about 2 centimetres of the edge of the puff pastry with nothing on there, and that's so they can stick and seal that wrap up. Now, I'm going to keep that there. Looks a bit sloppy now. It's not ready yet. We need to put this in the freezer to freeze as a log. So I've prepared a baking tray with baking paper over here. We're going to transfer it onto the baking tray. I've got my milk ready to glaze the puff pastry with. So I'm just going to gently pick this up. And if you've noticed, the fold where the end is always stays at the base. It's really important that you do that so that when you're baking it, it doesn't open. So I'm going to lift that up and transfer it over. If the ingredients fall out, that's fine. Pick them up and put them back in again. They'll freeze into place and you'll see what I mean later. Okay, I'm just going to now glaze the edges of the puff pastry with the milk. A bit of protein over puff pastry. You can use egg wash or milk like I have today. And that's so that it looks nice and shiny when you're baking it. Now I'm going to place this in the freezer to freeze. It will need a few hours. So this is the type of recipe you can do in advance, up into maybe even 3 months in advance. Freeze them as logs, take them out when you need them, and cut them as you need them as well. So I'm going to place this in the freezer, just cover it. You can cover it with the puff pastry sheet from before, or some Glad wrap or Glad bake. And I have made one earlier. I'm going to take it out and show you how it looks when it's frozen. As I mentioned earlier, I've already made a pizza scroll log. Just going to take it out and show you. So you can tell it was very sloppy and soft. It's very hard now. And I can pick it up, none of the ingredients are going to fall out. It's in a log form. All you'll need to do now is slice it up and place it onto a tray with baking paper and then into the oven. So using a sharp knife, slice it as thick as you want. These are great to use as afternoon treats after school. The kids always come home hungry. I know my children do. So they're great to throw in the oven. They bake within 20 to 30 minutes. So they're easy to pull out, cut out. All your hard work goes to a really good result. Okay, wait till you see how great these look once they're cut. You can see all our ingredients nicely layered into the scroll. Okay, you can see the puff pastry on the inside, our homemade sauce, the cheese, and the ingredients that you've chosen to use. The next step is to basically place these pieces onto a flat tray or a baking dish with baking paper lined. And I've already got that ready. So you would place them open, okay? So you can see all the ingredients facing you. They look amazing and they taste really good as well. Earlier on too, I've actually placed these in the oven to bake and they're almost ready. So I'm going to place this dish in the oven now and wait about 30 minutes till they're ready, and you'll see the final result that your kids will be asking and begging for more. Okay, once you've noticed a change in colour in your puff pastry, so a nice light golden brown, it's time to take them out. So I've removed them from the oven. And just a note to self beforehand, the mix that we made and the quantity that we had should make at least 5 of the puff pastries rolled, 5 of those square puff pastries. So they are quite rustic. Again, I'm in love with this rustic look. And I'm just going to layer each piece for presentation. Okay, they're a great starter to have, you know, at an adult birthday party or even for children's birthday parties. They're enjoyed by many people. So there you have it. A pizza scroll of your choice. Nice, quick and easy meal. صحتين.